York women have problems with intimacy.
100%, because like New York people as on a whole is like we're just like so distant. So now for a guy it works out to be distant because like we seem cool, like girls like oh like Jay's like how Jay-Z is. But when if you see a girl like that, like most guys aren't really attracted to that as much. To marry, I should say, or be intimate, because you can't really be intimate with somebody who's like distant.
Well, that's their defense. Where do you think that comes from, though?
Everybody in New York is
that's just the way we are. That's our culture.
Yeah, because we've been there.
But it's the same. It's the same.
I am Jamaican, so yeah. They don't, let me not generalize. In my family, it wasn't a very kissy, feely kind of environment. You felt it, but I was the kissy one. Like, even to this day, like, I'm kissy, huggy, and all that stuff, but I didn't necessarily learn the showing of intimacy, the open display of it in my home.
Interesting.
I knew it, but it wasn't something that was shown regularly. I'm all emotional.
Growing up, I was surrounded by a lot of women. So intimacy wasn't something that was spoken upon in terms of, well, it wasn't something that you saw because it was very limited male-female interaction that I saw. Like my mother and my father weren't together, so I didn't have that blueprint in front of me to understand what it was. And I would say coming up, you know, you had the older dudes who were telling you, oh, go have sex with a lot of women. So intimacy was skipped. It went straight from being a virgin to having sex. So the intimacy part wasn't there. I think for me, intimacy came with reading. Like I started reading, and with reading, I have a very good imagination. So when you read, you get to kind of picture the scenes in which you're reading.
I learned about intimacy, actually, a lot of it in the church, in a different way. Like, I learned about being close to someone or something in just like a supernatural kind of way. So, yeah, in the church is where I first, my mama didn't tell me about no intimacy.
Like most of our parents was raised, they didn't hear I love you. They didn't know how to express love or how to say I love you, how to receive it, how to give it. But they always know in the back of their minds that, okay, the fact that my dad went out every day and he brought home the money for us to pay mom to pay the bills. Mom was in the kitchen, you know, she was preparing our meals, washing our clothes, keeping the house clean. To them, that was love, aka intimacy.
On to like Michael Basin's books were really kind of influential. The Maintenance Man, wonderful book. Men Cry in the Dark by him as well. It was a really good book because you got to see, how should I say, a softer side of men that you don't get to see on a daily basis because us as men have to keep this facade up. So when you have to wear that mask 24/7, the word intimacy tends to come off as being soft, as opposed to not understanding that intimacy is just something as simple as having a conversation. So learning about intimacy was through trial and error, just through reading, experiencing different females, their likes, their dislikes. Yeah, so that's kind of how intimacy developed. It wasn't something that I had a blueprint to understand, and I'm still learning about intimacy.
So